So Joe Biden did a town hall event, and he gave us a preview of what a Biden presidency is going to look like.
Mr. Vice President, so you talk a lot about unity and division, but it seems now more than ever, there's a divisiveness in the country that goes way beyond disagreeing with policy or whether you have made the right decision or not. It's either you're with me or you're against me. The role of president, in my opinion, should be to unify as much as possible. So what 3 actions will you take as president to get us back to being one country versus several little, fiefdoms that are trying to yell each other about who's wrong and right?
Well, first of all, there's no reason why you should know, but I think, I'm not asking Lester to confirm, but he's heard, my entire career, I've been able to bring Democrats and Republicans together. And now people say, well, that was the old days, Joe. Things have changed. Well, the only thing that's changed is the way in which the politics that has been moved by some in the party have just gotten really ugly. I think what happens is, I think when people see, if in fact I'm fortunate enough to win, I think the absence of the president's willingness to go after and hold anyone accountable who disagrees with him, like he did to his former attorney general down in Alabama when I campaigned against him when he left the office, people are going to be less unwilling to compromise, number one.
That's delusional. That is completely delusional. Now, understand, everybody, just because Trump is messing up in a historic way and he's like abysmal in how horrendous a candidate he's become, does not mean that Joe is doing good. It means that Joe is doing better than Trump, but that's really not a hard thing to do. It's like being the tallest kid in kindergarten. Congratulations. You're slightly better than the dumbest man on the planet who's having a meltdown on a daily basis because he's high on COVID-19 treatment drugs. I mean, like, it's absurd. So let me explain why this is beyond delusional. Dude, you were just in the White House with Barack Obama for 8 years. You guys did nothing but reach out to Republicans all the time. And every single time they spit in your eye. Every single time. You did a Republican healthcare plan. That was Mitt Romney's plan. That was the Heritage Foundation plan. It's the individual mandate. It keeps the for-profit health insurance companies in control. It was their idea. And none of them voted for it. 0 voted for it. So when you say, my whole career I've brought Democrats and Republicans together, and I'll tell you, they'll be more reasonable with Trump gone. But they weren't reasonable before Trump was there. It's not like John Boehner was holding hands with Obama and they were singing Kumbaya and passing good policies. It's not like Mitch McConnell previously was, philosophically more aligned with Noam Chomsky. Like, what are you talking about? This idea that the fever's going to break and they're going to be reasonable, it is sheer madness. It's total madness. But that gets to the next point, which is he says, I'm going to bring Democrats and Republicans together. In his career, when has he done that? He's only done that to do Republican ideas. And this is the problem. When they talk about compromise in Washington, D.C., run for the hills. Because here's what they mean. We're going to compromise. Democrats and Republicans are going to agree to do more war. Democrats and Republicans are going to agree to deregulate Wall Street. Democrats and Republicans are going to agree to cut taxes for the wealthy. This is the stuff that whenever there's agreement, it's always on the Republican priorities. That's why numbnuts here was bragging in the Senate about trying to cut a deal to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Because he thinks, he values that bipartisanship so much that it's like, as long as we're agreeing to something, the details don't matter. I'll agree to do these right-wing priorities, and then I'll pat myself on the back for being such an amazing unifier or whatever. Which gets to the most important point, which is this. Listen, there are 2 kinds of unity, and one of them is really good, and the other one is really, really bad, okay? The good unity is the American people, so not the corrupt elites in D.C. who are screwing us all. The American people getting together and realizing and saying to each other, hey, I'm American, you're American. We're part of the same family. We may have our differences. We may have our disagreements, but ultimately, we're one and the same. And here are the things that we agree on. And guys, let me tell you something. There's a lot of things that the American people agree on. They overwhelmingly want to end the wars. They overwhelmingly want to raise the minimum wage. They overwhelmingly want to raise taxes on the rich. They overwhelmingly want Medicare for all. According to one poll, even a majority of Republicans, 51%, wants Medicare for all. That's the good unity. The good unity is, let's have Americans get together and along class lines agree to fundamental common sense economic reform. That's the good kind of unity, and that's the kind of unity I'll get behind all day, every day. But there's a bad kind of unity. The bad kind of unity is what Joe Biden is alluding to here. The bad kind of unity is when elected Democrats and Republicans get together and cut deals, and they cut deals that always serve their corporate donors and screw the American people. So when they start talking about unity in Washington, D.C., again, they're not unifying to help you. They're unifying to screw you. And Joe, this is the kind of unity that Joe likes and loves. And I have no doubt that if he's president, it will be the same old status quo. It'll be just like the Obama years. Let's call in the Republicans. Let's cut deals with them on their terms and do what they want. And those things always end up being really unpopular because people don't want the Republican priorities. They don't want to just serve corporations and fight endless wars. But see, that's the thing. Joe agrees with them not just because he's ideologically half in agreement with them. He also agrees with them because he's corrupt just like they are. He takes the big money just like they do. And this is the problem. So, listen, again, let's stop pretending. If you're on the left, let's stop pretending that there's any prayer of Joe Biden being a lefty. There's any prayer of Joe Biden being, the most progressive president since FDR. Just stop pretending, because that's not going to happen. And you have to deny his entire record in order to come to that conclusion. So you need to do wishful thinking in order to come to that conclusion. If you want to vote for Joe, and you want to make the case for Joe, and it's an honest case of just he's not as bad as Trump, totally fine. I'm not going to disagree with you. You say whatever you want. I think I start getting triggered when people start pretending, we're going to push him left. Push him left how? This guy who brags every single time he's talking, giving a speech or at a town hall or whatever, he bashes Bernie Sanders, bashes the socialists, says, F you to the left, and he says stuff like this and lets you know, hey, my whole career, I'm a neoliberal corporatist. When I'm elected, I will be a neoliberal corporatist. He's silly enough to say, hey, the fever's going to break and they'll be more reasonable when Trump is gone. That's objectively not true. Trump and the establishment Republicans are the same. The only difference is Trump also does mean tweets. That's it. That's the only difference. So, you know what's going to happen if Joe gets elected? Exactly what you think is going to happen. He's going to cut deal after deal doing right-wing priorities. Now, again, at the end of the day, for some very basic reasons, it might end up being a better administration than Trump. Listen, all he has to do is not escalate further with Iran, and his presidency would be better than Trump's. Like, Trump and neocons running his administration literally want to fight a war with Iran. This is the guy who's part of the administration who did the Iran nuclear agreement, which is one of the, if not the best thing they did, one of the best things they did. So if he just stops wanting to fight war with Iran and gets back in that agreement, on that alone, he could be better than Trump. But my point is, don't delude yourself into thinking that it's going to be, some sort of amazing left-wing FDR-like presidency. It's just not. It's going to be corporatism and bipartisanship, and he's going to govern like it's 1996. And he doesn't understand the moment that we're really in. He doesn't understand that we have a pandemic and we have a depression, and that it's not like, I don't doubt that he'd be a lot better on the pandemic and that he wants everybody to wear a mask and might do a national mask mandate or something like that. That'd be wonderful. But is he going to go all in on an economic response that's necessary? Is he going to do universal basic income? He's not for it. His running mate, Kamala Harris, had $2,000 a month for the remainder of the crisis. He's not for it. So it's going to be the same old, same old. He doesn't grasp what's going on right now. He just wants to be president, And he'll do exactly what he's done throughout his whole career, which is I'm going to work with the right and act like that's savvy, and that makes me some sort of, some sort of hero. That's why they called it, we're working on the grand bargain. What was the grand bargain? To cut entitlements. They thought that was like this grandiose thing that everybody would pat them on the back. And they'd frame it as, we had to cut entitlements in order to save it. I'm sure. In the same way that you had to overthrow a foreign government to protect democracy somehow. Intervening with guns and overthrowing a government is somehow bringing about more democracy and more freedom. That's a contradiction, right? I'm saving these programs by cutting them. Take the money from grandma because of the deficit or something. Aren't I such a hero? No, you're not. You're a joke. And this is what we mean when we say there is no Democratic Party in this country. There's the Republican Party and the Diet Republican Party. And Joe is the quintessential example of the Diet Republican.